Welcome to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. We are celebrating Dub Day here in the Broncos studio. We appreciate you guys listening and tuning in, whether in the car or you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate all of our listeners out there when you subscribe and like and all these great things. But we also like when you guys are here hanging out with us on Dub Day because the Broncos improved to 9-2. They knock off the Kansas City Chiefs in a 22-19 win at Empower Field at Mile High. They are undefeated at home still, and they extend their winning streak. And as all the guys mentioned in the locker room, it's always good to go into the bye week on a win because you have a whole week to just relish in the fact that you are 9-2, sitting atop of the AFC West and holding on top of the AFC as well. So early thoughts from you as you digest this game, 24 hours, not even, I feel like. But yesterday on Sunday was a great, I think, statement for this Broncos defense, for this Broncos offense. And as many players mentioned, I wonder what they're going to say now.
That's right. Yeah, you mentioned you're either listening or in the car or you're watching on YouTube. What if you're in the car watching on YouTube?
Oh, wow. That's a double whammy there.
Yeah.
Well,
if you're driving, we don't recommend that. If you're a passenger, that's fine.
The driver can listen on
consume this podcast responsibly
and safely.
Yes,
it's going to be a good one.
Important. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on kind of instant reaction podcast I did last night when I just sit in a room and talk to myself for 30 minutes.
Nice.
I just go.
You just let it all out.
I just talk. Just talk.
We all need that after a game, especially after a game like yesterday.
I said that they didn't have a stranglehold yet on the division, but they have a stronghold on the division. And a listener texted me and said, "What's the difference between a stranglehold and a stronghold?" And I think it's just it's one step below. That's what I would say.
It's an interesting question that you're getting from a listener.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how much I value the listeners. They have, if you want, you can have my personal number. You can text me.
Instant analysis, instant reaction, instant feedback.
Yeah, and just really get a closer look at the podcast. So, but as I said last night, I think the Broncos made a statement in a variety of ways and answered a lot of questions. And your question there that you asked of what are they going to say now, which was a common refrain we heard in the locker room, is there's nothing to say now, right? If you're looking to critique this team, because, and I went into it in great depth, and I'm sure we'll talk about a lot of this, but whether it was the offense and Bo Nix stepping up in big moments, whether it was the defense holding Mahomes in check again for the fourth time under defensive coordinator Vance Joseph since he returned to Denver, whether it was a special teams unit bouncing back in a big way, and just kind of the overall mentality and toughness and resilience of this team. We've been talking about, hey, take this one game at a time, and I still think that's important. But you've, in my mind, and I think across the league now, whether it's other teams, analysts, whoever it might be, the Broncos have elevated themselves in the conversation. This is no longer just a fun story with a team that's gotten off to a hot start and done well in one-score games. This is no longer a team like last year that made the playoffs as a wild card team, and it was kind of like, hey, we made the playoffs. That's a great step. This is a team now that if they can beat a team like the Chiefs that went to the Super Bowl last year, they can beat a team like the Eagles who won the Super Bowl last year. If they can play this type of defense against those teams, and Bo Nix can play like he did in the second half in those games, and really what we've seen is in the biggest moments, this team rises to the occasion. Yeah. If they continue to do that, there's nobody in the AFC that this team cannot beat. And especially if you're able to continue this march toward home field advantage in the playoffs and in a crowded AFC, that might be critically important to have that advantage that, hey, you're playing New England, you're playing Indy, you're playing Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, whoever it might be. Can you do that at Empower Field at Mile High that, as Sean Payton said on Sunday, was loud?
Yeah. It
was loud, and it changed the game on Sunday. And so I think you look at yesterday's game as a statement that this team, they shouldn't fear anybody. There's nobody that they can't beat. And this is a real Super Bowl contender. And I think when Sean Payton said that in the offseason, that, hey, this is one of those teams that I think has a chance, I think nationally there was this question of, hey, is it a year too soon, or is it, hey, what's he see that we don't see? Well, now everybody sees it because this is a team that is winning games in all sorts of ways, but in the biggest of moments, they play their best football. And every week they continue to impress me. This was a huge win over a Chiefs team that was fighting for their life in the division race and are now not eliminated, but now 3.5 games back. I mean, this was a monumental win, and I think it sends a message that this is a team that you still got to go do it. You still got to stay healthy. Still a long way to go, but certainly when you're talking about Super Bowl contenders in the AFC, you have to mention the Denver Broncos now.
The Broncos are 7-2 in one possession games. The Chiefs fall to 0-5 in one possession games this season. And going into this matchup, head coach Sean Payton mentioned, I'm really happy that's flipped because every time we played the Chiefs for the most part, it's always been very close games. And so knowing that the Broncos are on the right side of that stat now was very helpful. And I think with the excitement of what this win means, going into the bye week, as you mentioned, needing to get healthy, the bye week is coming at a very perfect time for guys to just kind of heal up, rest up, get some key guys back. Obviously, we had Marvin Mims return. And I know that, those are your early thoughts, but I wonder what the fans are thinking. I know that normally we do comments on Thursday, but as we're going into the bye week, I figure after a big win, we can check the pulse of Broncos country. What you got?
Yeah, no Thursday show this week because it's the bye week, so we're going to combine some of that, do some comments here. I'm going to start with the preview show that we posted on Thursday, as we do. I'm going to try to get this right. Sometimes you don't know. Obi Kenobi. I don't know if that's supposed to be like Obi-Wan Kenobi, but like a kind of a Pokemon crossover, like a Star Wars Pokemon crossover episode. What was your favorite, before we get to Obi Kenobi's question, what was your favorite crossover situation?
Ooh.
Like I liked a nice like a Rugrats Wild Thornberries crossover. That was a good one.
You took it all the way back.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I would have to think about that. Crossover episodes are always, I like
they do it with the Friends cast visits. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's fair. I think, mine, I like more of the incognito crossovers. Like, I like, as you know, I like Disney movies. So like, I like when Monsters Inc. they'll have like toys from Toy Story in Boo's bedroom in the background. So it's kind of like a crossover, but like
an Easter egg.
Exactly.
You're more of an Easter egg.
I'm more of an Easter egg kind of person.
There's some of that in like the Marvel stuff too, right?
Yes, I'm not the biggest Marvel person. Those movies are so long. I know. My sister's a
Ike's gonna be mad. Our friend Ike.
My sister's a huge Marvel fan.
Friend, coworker? I think friend.
He's like
it depends on the day.
We love you, Ike. Wait. Before we get to, I'm not even gonna try to say that username. What was one of your favorite usernames that you had growing up?
One of my favorite usernames?
Yeah. We all had AOL at some point from all of our young listeners.
That feels like a question for another episode. We don't want to use all our content. Maybe you'll forget. Okay, Opie Kenobi says, I'm not afraid to say it. Sometimes a group of guys just have that mesh that defies all the analysts and gets a special name like the Orange Crush or the No-Fly Zone, the 85 Bears, the 2000 Ravens. At the end of the day, they are remembered because they are a team that was unlike anything they have seen. Ooh. This defense is special because they are even more dangerous than the 2015 Broncos. The ESPNs, the Herds, the Nick Wrong, parentheses, Nick Right. Well, nicely done, Obi Kenobi. Doesn't realize that the trophy. Oh, they don't realize until the trophy is held up to show how incredible they are. I've seen this with so many teams. This will unfold as the team like the 2015 Broncos. Nobody knows how to see this team, but the Broncos are at the top of the NFL. They don't want to say it's because we're special. Super Bowl special. Watch.
We're super special.
And this was before the game. So I think that, I was talking with somebody, and it's tough in the moment when you're living it to be like, hey, this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. And Sean Payton talks about the journey and their steps along the way where you build that confidence. But there certainly is something reminiscent of that 2015 team, the way that they won defensively with the offense making big plays and big moments. Certainly their one-score success. Yeah. And I think, if I remember properly, that 2015, like one of the most memorable moments from that 2015 season, that helped kind of turn the tide in the Broncos' favor was a 30-24 win over the Patriots. And everybody remembers that game, the snow game. Went to overtime. C.J. Anderson has the walk-off touchdown. Brock Osweiler puts his arms up in the air. And that win ended up being kind of a deciding win that eventually led to home field advantage. The Patriots at that time were undefeated. They were 10-0. The Broncos in that game improved to 9-2, just like they improved to 9-2 this week. And going into this game, I thought there were some similarities just in terms of what the matchup meant. Kind of similar. I don't think many people thought with Brock Osweiler in at quarterback that the Broncos were going to beat the undefeated Patriots. Yeah. It was a tight game. It was a game that required the Broncos to come back, and yet the Broncos won it. And we saw what that meant later in the season. We saw what a special win that was. And so I think there was something poetic about this other home game against a rival, the same way that back then the Patriots were the Broncos' rival, and to get to 9-2. And I posted on Twitter, but Broncos have started 9-2 or better just 11 times in franchise history. Wow. And the previous 10 times, obviously we're in the middle of the 11th, right. In those previous 10 times, 7 times the Broncos have made it to the Super Bowl. So that's what sort of season we're having. Yeah. For whatever reason, that Patriots game, it kind of reminded me of that. So we'll see how it all plans out. But yeah, Obi Pikanobi, you were on it in terms of this defense, and that was a big win. Moving on in the comment section, Rambam 001, not to be confused with Rambam 002, 3, 4, any of those.
Sure. He's the one.
That's right. Oh, maybe it's 001, like a
Rambam 001.
Like a secret agent. Like a James Bond situation.
I think we can determine that based on his comment.
It's a good comment. Elisa and Aric are an excellent team. They complement each other well. Great show.
Okay, yeah, definitely
Sounds
001.
Like a secret agent.
It's definitely something like 001. Inside information.
That's right. Nicole Marie says, Broncos country, let's go. This team has come so far, and the connection is amazing. I've been a fan for over 20 years, and this has been exciting to watch. Casey Crosby says, you two are great. Your attitude reflects the Broncos' can-do attitude. Nice. We'll be watching, rooting them on. Lifetime Broncos fans living in Washington State. Hopefully I'll get out to Denver to see them play. Casey, maybe there's a nice little home playoff game you could get to. Team Took, friend of the show, I think. Yes. It appears that Team Took's avatar is, I don't know what's going on there. Is that a banana? It's like Groot? I don't even really know what a Groot is. I think it's a banana.
Is he a Guardian of the Galaxy?
Is Groot green? I don't really watch that.
It's like a tree.
Ike, tell me what's happening. Team Took says, if it's close, Sean isn't going to let Andy off the hook this time. Okay. Bill Bell says, I suspect Bo needs to have a good game. Broncos still have the best defense, so that gives them a great probability for a win in any game, even without PS2 and Singleton. 2 good points there. Bo did have a good game. I think, and I said this on our analysis, he outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
In my mind, just the number of big throws that he made in big moments, especially in the fourth quarter. A couple of plays where Mahomes needed to hit passes to keep those drives alive. Didn't do it. Bo made those plays. And man, the third downs, this was the 4th best defense in the NFL coming in. Broncos had their 3rd best third down day of the season. They converted a 3rd and 15, a 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 7.
A 3rd and 15 to Cortland Sutton.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is
my favorites of the game.
They're going to make me sound like a little insane, but
say the weird thing.
I was working till about, I don't know, I would say 12:30, and I typed a lot yesterday. When it's a win like that, there's all sorts of stories.
Like you said, you just have to get it all out.
You can't pick one story. You got to write them all. So go to denverbroncos.com and read the thousands of words. Watch your interview with Jaquan McMillan.
Yeah, J-Mag got some
the analysis. There's all sorts of good content. Why aren't you watching it?
It's on youtube.com/Broncos and Denver Broncos and DenverBroncos.com.
I was laying in bed and I was trying to fall asleep, and after a game I'm always a little jacked, and I was just like, man, that 3rd and 15, I just couldn't get over it because in the moment, and this is just how one of those tight games go, when you're in 3rd and 15, you're backed up and you're like, oh, are they going to convert this? And you're worried oh, Mahomes is going to get the ball back at his own 30, and then they're only going to need 30 yards, and they can kick
You're playing out the whole game off of one 15.
And I haven't looked at the win probability swing, but I would have to guess that the win probability swing in terms of converting that third down versus not converting it, massive. Got to be massive. And so kudos and everyone all week. Bo, can you hang in the pocket? Can you set your feet? Blah, blah, blah. Well, Bo, first of all, he did that on a variety of occasions in this game. You saw it on the throw down the sideline to Troy Franklin, to Pat Bryant, several others. But on this one, he moved outside the pocket on the run, threw it to a sliding Cortland Sutton. And it's like, you don't want to take that out of Bo Nix's game. That's what makes him so exciting as a quarterback. So Bill Bell was on the money there with Bo. And then the PS2 and Singleton thing is also, I think, worth mentioning, is that they've gone 3-0 without arguably the best defensive player in the league.
Reigning defensive player of the year in terms of what Pat brings to the table, especially going against some top receivers.
Yeah, and they limited Rashee Rice, who had been really good. He'd had, I believe, a touchdown in each game in his 3 games back. I think he had 90-something yards last week and or 2 weeks ago. And the Broncos held him to, 38 yards. And one of those was on, like, the first offensive snap for 11 yards. Like, they
that was his longest catch of the day, was 11 yards.
They held him in check. And to do all that, it's one, and this is no disrespect, but, like, it's one thing to do that against a Texans team that's playing Davis Mills after C.J. Stroud goes out, and it's one thing to do that against the Raiders, who were a little overmatched from an offensive line standpoint. You did that against Patrick Mahomes, and you did it without Pat Surtain. You did it without Alex Singleton, who wears the green dot and communicates that there were no breakdowns defensively.
Yep.
Man.
And again, you didn't give up 100 yards on receiving still in week 11.
Yeah, and still only Devonta Smith is the only one to have 100 yards this year. And that I think the big picture to me was, like, you watch this game, the Broncos could have run away with this, I think. You know, if you score a touchdown after that Marvin Mims return, on the first drive, there's a big throw to Troy Franklin that goes through his hands, and I'm sure that one would have been a tough catch. But, like, if he's able to make that, you're down in the red zone. There were just some plays, and then, like, it's 3rd and 20, and Mahomes gets bailed out by a PI call. There's a 61-yarder to Tyquan Thornton. There's all these plays that kind of took some sort of, I don't want to say miraculous effort, but the Broncos, I thought this was a convincing win, even though it was only 3 points.
I mean, on third down, their efficiency, they were 7 for 15 on third down. Like red zone, obviously the Broncos and the Chiefs both have really good defenses in the red zone. And I think the Chiefs offense has been very, very successful in the red zone. And so for this defense to keep them in check and hold them to field goals for a good portion of the game, especially on key drives, was huge because it allowed the offense to come back and answer.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think the Chiefs are now 2 of 13 in the red zone against Vance Joseph's defenses in 4 games.
That's
pretty good.
That's a pretty good stat.
Savage mode. We're doing like a dual comment.
I like it.
It's kind of fun.
I like it.
Savage mode said, I got my team winning against the Chiefs always. Bo Nix is my quarterback. He reminds me of John Elway back in '97. And this is funny. And Savage mode, silly guy or gal. He reminds me of John Elway back in 1997 and 1898. John Elway. Looks good.
Looks good.
For 100 and whatever. 1898. I want to see that. That's crazy.
Unreal.
That's crazy.
It's unreal.
Woofy says, we have it as long as we don't implode with mistakes and penalties. A lot of penalties.
A lot of penalties.
But really, they were on, most of the yardage was on, what was it, 10 for 147?
Yes, 10 penalties for 147 yards. The Chiefs had 10 penalties, the same amount of penalties for only 69 yards.
But the 2 of the penalties were for 87 combined yards. So you look at it, it's obviously you can't take those out, but yeah, for the Broncos to win despite that, impressive. Yeah. What else we got? Oh, Lone Voice said, if Denver plays down to the opponent and plays for a 1-score game, they will lose. They need to dominate on defense. Well, they played a 1-score game.
They definitely did.
And they won.
Yeah.
So that's all the comments we have.
Some good comments.
Because we also have comments on the analysis, but a lot of the comments are like, Woo! We won. Great W. Let's go.
We value those comments too, guys. Thank you. For
We do.
leaving them.
We do. We do like those. But they're harder to react to.
This is very
You know?
true. Woo, 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 woo. I mean,
Dr. Crocodile left a comment.
what did he say?
Well,
What did
how
the
do we know
doctor say?
Yeah, doctor. Dr. Crocodile said if the refs hadn't absolutely robbed us, we'd be 10-1. Unreal. Go Broncos. I think he's talking about the Colts game.
Yeah, probably.
So, he or she. Who knows? Dr. Crocodile, thank you for your comment.
We appreciate all you guys for your comments. Again, make sure you guys leave them on our YouTube channel for a chance for them to be read here on the show. A lot of comments about the offense, a lot of comments about the defense, but let's start with the offense. And you called it. In the preview episode, you said it cannot be understated the impact of Marvin Mims coming back and what he brings to this offense. And you mentioned specifically on special teams. Well, he showed that in a very welcome back Marvin Mims moment with a 70-yard return that really set up the Broncos. And just his speed, his agility. And he mentioned after the game, when you're coming back from a concussion, you're kind of going out there trying to figure out what you're doing, and then you just kind of go. And he said, once I did that 70-yard, it was like, all right, I'm back. Like, I'm good. I'm here. And he said it felt really good to be back out there. He said watching on TV was not fun for him. But to be out there and really make an impact in this game was huge. I think Jaleel McLaughlin, coming back in, Harvey as well with J.K. Dobbins going down. Both of them just going out there and doing what they can to help this team win was big. But what are your thoughts on how the offense was able to come together? We'll obviously talk about Bo in more detail in a second and the wide receiver core, but just looking at that running game and special teams, Will Lutz, again, impressive game.
Yeah, I think there's a really good chance, and he should be, that Will Lutz is AFC Special Teams Player of the Week again. I think the run game, it was 21 attempts, 59 yards, just 2.8 yards per carry. Some of that, I think, is Chiefs play aggressive defense. If you watch, they're up at the line of scrimmage. We saw this last year in Kansas City, and really the last few times they've played, is they have a lot of design run pressures where they're basically in the backfield, whether run or pass, trying to stop the run game. So not overly concerned. I thought R.J. Harvey had a couple of nice runs that helped, especially late, to set up that the tying field goal. Jaleel McLaughlin obviously has the touchdown run. R.J. Harvey helped in the pass game as well with 3 catches for 20 yards. So that's going to be a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
J.K. Dobbins on IR. I know there's reports that it's potentially season ending. Sean Payton has not confirmed any of that, didn't talk about it after the game. But the running game, I think, is going to be a work in progress. And R.J. Harvey certainly has that talent. And it's worth noting that the Chiefs are good on defense. And so this was going to be a tough, grinded out game for Denver. You mentioned the special teams, though, and that was a huge part of this game. Marvin's first punt return obviously led directly to 3 points. Yeah. And then the second punt return, I know he had others, but the second big one, which I think was 24 yards, helps the Broncos where they basically just need 1 first down. I think that's what they got on the game-tying field goal drive. They just needed 1 first down. They got it to the KC 40 and picked up 4 more yards, and Will Lutz drills a 54-yarder. And so for him to go 5 for 5, Mims leading directly to 6 points that in a 22-19 game are critical. Yeah. The kickoff coverage was really good. Jeremy Crawshaw, he had a tough week last week, and Will Lutz talked mentally, especially as a rookie, how difficult that can be to come back from. He had some big-time punts that forced the Chiefs to start backed up. I mean, the 12-yard line, they started 20. That was after a kickoff. But, yeah, they were backed up several times. It certainly helped the Broncos in this game. And so special teams stepped up in a big way. And then I think I mentioned it in Cover 4, plug. There were so many good plays and plays that were defining moments in this game, but truly one that I hope doesn't get forgotten, and it certainly won't be by this player because he got a game ball, was Frank Crumb's blocked extra point, because Travis Kelce scores. Yeah. You're about to go down 4 points, in which case they're about, 6 minutes? About 10 minutes left at that point. If you go down 4, you've now got to score a touchdown, obviously, or score 2 different field goals. So let's play it out from there. You go 3 and out, force a Chiefs 3 and out. You get the ball back with 6.5 minutes left. Say in the exact same scenario, you're facing 4th and 6 at the KC 36. You've got a decision to make. Do you go for it on 4th and 6? Do you kick a field goal and then hope that you can get the ball back with 4:10 to play, get a stop, go down and score again? Or do you go for it? Maybe you don't get it. Now you're down 6 and they have the ball. It just would have, in my mind, drastically changed how the game played out.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Frank Crum, who we should note plays offensive tackle, and has just recently, I think our friend Parker Gabriel from the Denver Post noticed this and pointed it out, that he's played in the middle there. He's tall, right?
Yeah,
he's huge.
He is.
And so having him in the middle, you got to hit it over him. He blocks that extra point. Now it's a 3-point game, and it changes the entire complexion of the final 10 minutes of the football game. And so,
for our listeners that don't know, Frank Crum is 6'8".
6'8". Jeez.
As someone that's 5'1", 5'2" on a good day, that's very, very tall.
That is very tall. It's, for me, it's tall. But that was. It's possible the Broncos still win, but I think if that
it changes the chess match.
Yeah, exactly, and it changes every decision you make from there forward. And so, for a special teams unit that has faced criticism this year, to have the 2 punt returns, to go 5 for 5 on field goals, to have the punts, to have kick coverage that, I mean, the Chiefs' starting field position compared to the Broncos' starting field position was significantly different. And so to have all that and then the blocked extra point, like, what a day for the special teams unit. And credit to them for playing that way, because it made a huge difference in this game. And Will Lutz said he walked into the locker room afterwards and told Darren Rizzi, like, special teams helped win us that game. Yeah. So, I couldn't have been more impressed from a special team standpoint.
It's when we always talk about, like, you have to find different ways to win. This is one of those ways that you take advantage of your special teams in the position that your speed guys can give you, the height of what you have on this team and how that can play a factor, as you mentioned, blocking the extra point. And this offense found ways to make plays when it mattered. And you have Troy Franklin, who had a big play, I believe it was like 35 yards. Then you have Court, who had a huge 3rd and 15 situation, caught that. He's that reliable guy. Like, and it's really interesting when you watch. It's like, okay, like, it has to go to Court, right? It has to go to Court. And then it goes to Court and he just hauls it in. Like, he's so reliable in that sense. And him and Bo have such a good connection. You see that continue to grow with all the receivers. And you have Pat Bryant getting into the mix. Again, he had a big play once again in this game too. And the way that Bo was able to distribute the ball to his different receivers and make plays, as you mentioned, when Patrick Mahomes was not making plays. And we talked about that. This chess match is a lot of taking advantage when the Chiefs don't do something, and that was a big part in this game. And how are you able to respond? And I think the Broncos were able to do that with their offense, especially going to this game. I mean, all the hype around it. You had the CBS crew here, their A1 team. They had the pregame show stationed outside, their halftime. Like, this was a huge game. Like, everyone and anyone's attention was on it in terms of what this means, not only in the AFC West, but in the AFC as a whole. And again, we always stress it because I always have to remind people, this is Bo Nix's second year in the league. This is his sophomore year. And for him to be on a stage like this and deliver, you can't teach that. And they mentioned, like, yeah, he has the fourth quarter gene, but he has the gene to just be a winner. And he comes and everyone in this locker room believes in him. And a lot of guys mentioned, like, the average viewer doesn't know what we have in this locker room. And that's okay. Like, games like this, we're going to go out and show it. And that's exactly what they did.
This was, and I want to get back to the receivers because I think that, like you said, several of them had big games. But this was a big week for Bo Nix. And he faced a lot of criticism. And I thought, and I said this last night, I think a lot of it was unnecessary, undue, a little overboard. We talk about it's a week-to-week league. The narrative can get out of control. Sean Payton mentioned kind of in general, he read some stuff last week that he kind of suggested it almost made him cry because of, I would assume, because of how ridiculous some of the narratives were. But this was a team that had played, as we talked about, 7 games in 39 days or something like that. They'd played 10 consecutive games without a bye or a mini bye. They just played a really physical Houston team, and then on a short week played the Raiders. And so I chose, and it's a lesson that you learn every year in the NFL. Don't rush to judgment after 1 week. And I understand we have to talk about things. I understand that there's a need to evaluate each week, but I just didn't think after that performance it was time to panic. And a lot of people nationally were panicking about Bo Nix, and he took a lot of heat. And there were things that were people were talking about, do they look at other quarterbacks? And it was like, this is not the time for that. And so
and it's been reiterated, maybe added by the GM, by ownership. This is their franchise quarterback. This is a guy that they trust in and has come in and bought into what they're doing and is bringing back excitement. There's a reason why that stadium was loud. There's a reason why, yes, Broncos country loves the Broncos, but the guys always say it with a smile on their face. We're giving them a lot to cheer about. And that a big part of that is Bo Nix and what he brings to this team, and as a captain, as a leader, and as a quarterback.
Yeah, and I think in the face of all of that, for him to handle this week like he did, like McGlinchey said, that he saw Bo Nix locked in at a different level, that he practiced really well, that he was determined to be better. I don't think for himself or for the fans or the critics. I think for his teammates. And he showed up on Sunday afternoon and played a really good game. And he's not going to win AFC Offensive Player of the Week. He's not going to light up any stat sheet. He didn't have any touchdown passes, but he didn't turn the ball over. He made some big time throws. His quarterback rating in the second half was in the mid 90s. He had I think against that type of defense and that type of game, that's what you're looking for from a guy that you can call your franchise quarterback. He delivered throws that were on time, on target, tight window throws. You mentioned the 35-yarder to Troy Franklin. There's the long one to Pat Bryant. There's the late one to Troy Franklin to set up the field goal. There's an early 3rd and 11. There's a 3rd and 15 to Cortland Sutton. You're talking about 8, 9, 10 big throws. I hate that, I can't say 5, 6, 7 big throws because I don't like that anymore. Anyway, he made 8, 9, 10 big throws,
Yeah.
and again, I think the way these two teams played offense was different. The Chiefs' strategy was chuck it deep.
Yeah, and
they connected on a couple of them. Really, just one actually, the Tyquan Thornton, and then they drew pass interference calls on the other. But outside of one other drive, there wasn't an intermediate passing game for the Chiefs. Whereas for the Broncos, Bo Nix was finding people in the middle of the field. He was finding them on go balls down the sideline. This was a more varied offense. And like you said, I think Bo Nix made more plays in big moments than Patrick Mahomes. And for him to do that after all the criticism, I know he says he deletes social media, but he's aware. He knows. These guys know. And certainly if he didn't know, his teammates knew. And you had Adam Troutman being Dragon Slayer in his basement with his 7-Eleven Slurpee. These guys were fired up defending their teammate. And for him to go out and respond the way he did, Sean Payton said he played outstanding. And again, he won. And I've gone on and on about this, but the Broncos are 9-2. They've won 8 consecutive games. And people are like, oh, they barely beat the Raiders. They barely beat the Jets. There are so many teams, whether it was the Bills last week in Miami, the Chargers going to Jacksonville in, what was it, 35-6? That was a game that if the Chargers win and the Broncos lose to Kansas City yesterday, the Chargers are back in first place, and it wasn't competitive. And so these are games that each week there's always that week in the NFL where a team has an off week, and they slip up and they lose. And yet the Broncos, even when they haven't been at their very best, if they've had their B- game or their C game, they've still found a way to win. Mm-hmm. And that's why you're talking about them now being 2 games ahead of the Chargers, 3.5 games ahead of the Chiefs, having the best record in the AFC, being in the hunt. I think they have a 23% chance of getting the 1 seed, which is the second highest in the conference behind the Patriots. Those things happen because you've won these quote-unquote ugly games, and the common thread is, one, good defense, which we know is what the Broncos have tried to build, but also in the big moments, Bo Nix has delivered more often than not. The fourth quarter against the Texans, the comeback against the Giants, the comeback against the Eagles, even against the Jets. Like, he makes a couple big plays that lead to the go-ahead field goal there. And so, I don't know. I mean, you've looked for this for so long, like a guy that can help you win.
Yeah.
And go toe for toe with Patrick Mahomes. And we talked about it all year. Like, in the playoffs, when you're facing Josh Allen or you're facing Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or whoever it might be, do you have a guy that, hey, you're down 3 late in the fourth quarter. Can he go make the plays? Can he go make the throws? And Bo Nix showed again yesterday. And I don't want to pretend like it was the first time, because it wasn't. He's done this all year and last year too. He's got 5 game-winning drives this year, which is the second most in a season. Only John Elway in 1985 had more game-winning drives in a single season in franchise history. He's tied for the most in the NFL this year. Again and again, he shows us, and yet there's still people that don't believe he can do it for some reason. But, like, if you're a Broncos fan, you've been waiting for a guy that can deliver in these big moments. Bo Nix is that guy, and he showed it yesterday.
He showed it yesterday, and
that's a good. Just clip it out for social media.
Yeah, I know. I don't worry, I lapped it. I had it because I was like, oh, give me a second. So if you guys missed that, you can watch it again when we post it on social.
Shorts, baby.
Because you're right. I mean, the numbers speak for itself, and I think one of the things that I respect so much about Bo Nix is the fact that he understands. He understands frustration. He understands the fans expecting more, and he's like, yeah, and I'm gonna give that to you. And it's the process, and they want more because we've been showing them we can be more. And the Broncos coming in and defending home field, the fact that they knock off an AFC West opponent, and a lot of the guys. My favorite was actually a quote from Adam Troutman, who after the game, when they asked him, like, oh, like, this is a big game. Like, do you feel like you guys knocked him off? And he's like, I don't want to get too ahead, but I do want to acknowledge, like, yes, this is a huge win. Yes, we played a better game today, but we have to see them again. And they're going to be just as ready, if not try to be more prepared to return the favor and give us a loss. And I think that little, like, sense of humbleness of being like, we're just getting started. We understand to win this division, we have to go to the Chiefs. Everybody on this team understands that. Everyone on this team respects that. And this defense is a huge part of that. And Jonathan Cooper spoke about that after the game, saying, like, look, like, you have to give respect there, but, like, they're a good team, but you know what? We're a good team too. And that statement in its own holds a lot of weight for me, because it's like, yes, they're great. Are you not noticing what we're doing over here? Because we're pretty great too. And I think showing that you can hang with the best and defeating the reigning Super Bowl champion and the runner-up to the Super Bowl in the same year. I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule and you mentioned, like, who are the Broncos really looking at and be like, we can only be ourselves at this point. We're in a good position, as you mentioned. Things happen in the league. It's a week-to-week league. We've seen it across different games where certain teams that should have won didn't. But this defense is out here to make a statement of what they're able to do. And Jaquan McMillan really made a huge impact on this game. I rewatched, like, his sacks, and they're just my favorite. He's just, like, flying full speed, no regard for himself. He's just like, I am going to take down Patrick Mahomes right now. He had his first career game with 2 sacks, and he also had an interception going into this game. Patrick Mahomes only had 5 interceptions all season. But as I had mentioned, believe 3 of those came in the last 2 games going into this matchup, and then J-Mac was able to pick him off as well. So making him uncomfortable was a huge part of it. And yes, the sacks weren't 6, 7, 8, and as they've been in past games, but it was when those sacks happened in the game that caused the biggest impact.
Yeah, there's, a lot there, right? I think that your point about, and we should also mention it because we glossed over it a bit, that, like, Troy Franklin, for example, had a couple of tough drops, comes back, makes big plays. Cortland Sutton was Cortland Sutton. Pat Bryant, career high in receiving. So kudos to all those guys. You mentioned the kind of, like, only beating ourselves. I think that what's interesting to me is, as you move forward, how do you reset from this? Because you've had this mentality of, we're chasing the Chiefs. Now people are going to be chasing you. And I think the bye week almost comes at a good time, because this is an emotional win. Guys are excited.
And they get to relish in it, actually.
Yeah, and you get to enjoy it a little more than you would if you played the next Sunday. But I do think it's probably good that you get this week off.
Yeah.
And then you can reset for Washington, because I'm sure Sean Payton next Monday will say, okay, great, enough of that. Like, we've got to move on. We've got to move on to week 13. And because that doesn't matter if we then slip up and lose one of these games. So, and the Broncos talk about we want to play in bigger games, and you've got an opportunity now to play a home playoff game is a bigger game than this, and you've got a chance to go earn one of those or multiple of those depending on how you play the rest of the year. So, and I think that's partially led by the defense, and you talk about Jaquan McMillan and the way he played. I think he deserves a lot of credit. The Broncos obviously drafted Jahdae Barron in the first round, and a lot of people thought, hey, Jahdae's coming for Jaquan's spot, and J-Mac has held him off. He's played at a high level. I would say closer to the 2023 version of J-Mac than last year, when maybe he didn't have kind of the season he wanted. And continue. One of the best things about J-Mac is that he makes big plays, and there are guys that have a knack for that, and it's not necessarily like there are guys like Pat that just shut guys down every play, but then you have J-Mac, and like he's able to get those interceptions. He's able to force turnovers. He's able to get those sacks off the edge. And for him to play that way, I thought it was really impressive, and good for him. I think that's part of it, is like you like to see these guys respond. You like to see these guys fight back. And so a big game for J-Mac. And then you talk about the defense in general, just like, I mean, in some ways, it was a quiet day for the Broncos pass rush, and they still had 3 sacks, right? And so,
and the timing of when those happen were key.
Exactly, but you just see Vance Joseph's defense and the way that it held Patrick Mahomes in check. And Jim Nantz mentioned something on the broadcast that, like, Vance Joseph's system was designed for these 2 games. Can you beat the Kansas City Chiefs when you play them? And they've been really good against the Chiefs. And in terms of the division, like, obviously Vance is getting a lot of head coaching buzz. Hopefully he's back in Denver, but I'm sure he wants another head coaching chance at some point. It'd be great to see him get that chance, but certainly the value he brings to the Broncos cannot be overlooked, because as long as you play the Chiefs like that every time you face them, you're going to have a chance to prove that this is not a one-off event. And so, I mean, you almost expect it at this point, but you also have to remind yourself that what they're doing is not normal, and they don't have Alex Singleton, they don't have Pat Surtain, and yet they still do this. And so the defense deserves all sorts of credit for yesterday's win.
I agree. I think the way that they all rallied, especially after the news that Alex Singleton shared at the beginning of last year, that's emotional in its own, knowing that your teammate is going through that. But a lot of the guys had talked briefly about it, that's an added motivation to win for something bigger. And people have always asked me, and whenever I talk to other reporters around the league, they always ask me, like, what makes this team so special? And I said, look, if you watch any America's Game or any NFL Films production of Super Bowl teams, when they interview those players, they weren't necessarily playing for a Super Bowl. They were playing for each other, and that's what got them to the Super Bowl. And every relationship that they talk about is like, no, I play for the guy next to me, and I'm playing for this guy. And when you watch Alex Singleton at the game, on the sideline, talking to guys, being in the mix, he's such a leader for this team. And when I spoke to Zach Allen about it, he said, yeah, he's our emotional leader on this team. And him being there, and he was like, even just during that week when he announced his news, he's like, just him being around the facility was so helpful for us, because he is that guy that we can rely on. And when you're going into a tough matchup like this, you almost need that moral, emotional compass on the sideline. That's what Alex Singleton brings. So for this defense to not only rise from the physical level, but from the mental level to, have this game that they did against the Chiefs is just huge. Because as you look at the AFC, I was looking at Week 12. You have the Bills playing on Thursday Night Football. You go down. The Chiefs' next opponent is the Colts, who are coming off of their bye week fresh. And obviously Jonathan Taylor went into that having a career game of his own. And the Broncos and the Chargers have a bye week this week, and the Raiders play the Browns. So when you look at just the AFC West of what's next, as you mentioned, the Chiefs needed to win this game against the Broncos. And so for the Broncos to prevent that from happening, now you're going to go play another tough AFC West opponent, and the Broncos have a chance to rest up and then come back and then face the Commanders, which, as all the guys mentioned, is like, we're not even going to take that light. We're not thinking about that at this very second. But when it is time to game plan for the Commanders, regardless of what their last game was, because they're on a bye week as well, they're going to be a tough team no matter what. So I think with the AFC looking the way it is, the Broncos are in really good position given the way the rest of the AFC standings are looking.
Yeah, I mentioned the 23% chance of the top seed, and that's something that as you go along, the Broncos have 6 games left. It becomes more realistic, and you just got to keep winning. I don't know exactly what would do that. Is it 14-3? Would 13-4 get it done? Would have to play around a little bit more with all the different simulators to see kind of what the odds say. But I think you just got to stay focused on what you've got to do. The game, obviously, that has probably the most direct impact this week is the Chiefs hosting the Colts. It's interesting because the Broncos' chances of the 1 seed go up if the Chiefs beat the Colts, but I think if you're a Broncos fan, hard to root for the Chiefs in any scenario. And I think that one thing I would just like, some team is going to be the 2 seed, right? And if the Chiefs sneak in the playoffs, some team is going to host the 7 seed Chiefs. And man, that was it felt like a playoff game. It was a tough game yesterday. It went back and forth. I mean, I don't think you ever want to see Patrick Mahomes in a game like that. Even, obviously the players are going to welcome any challenge, but man, I don't know. Maybe you want the Colts to win and just kind of try to knock the Chiefs out of contention possibly.
Yeah.
So that'll be, I don't really know what, I think.
Their track record shows if you let them in the playoffs, they get in the playoffs, they're going to make a run. And so we can prevent that by any means necessary. Not a bad plan there.
But yeah, this is kind of a light week in terms of playoff ramifications.
Patriots play the Bengals.
Yeah, if the Texans knock off the Bills, that kind of helps the Broncos from a 1 seed perspective. I think if the Bears play the Steelers, that's more of a kind of an AFC North situation with Steelers Ravens in terms of who ends up on top there. Don't know that they're necessarily in the conversation for that top seed at the moment. So we'll see. But I think the main thing is, like, you've now got a chance. You've battled through this stretch, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Nick Bonito. Said, they got the mini bye, but it didn't. It's just a couple days. Like, it's not the same as having a bye. Yeah. You get to rest your bodies up, and now you have a 6-week stretch before you go into the playoffs. And if you can take care of business and win these games and get that 1 seed, you have 6 weeks before you get another bye potentially. I mean, that's what you're playing for, is to have more rest. But, can you get guys like Surtain, like Nate Adkins? Can you get guys, Jonah Ellis? Like, can some of those guys that you didn't place on IR, can some of those guys come back and help you and really get healthy and kind of gear up for the stretch run here? Because it's certainly not an easy stretch after the bye. You have 2 road games. I know there are teams that are struggling currently. The Commanders, like we said, 3-8. Who knows what happens if Jaden Daniels starts in that game? They said they're going to reevaluate him after the bye week. Didn't put him on IR after that dislocated elbow. So who knows if you see him. The Raiders are 2-7, but that was a tough game there last year. And then you play a Packers team that's fighting for a division. You play a Jaguars team that just
that can show they have offensive power.
They just beat up on the Chargers.
Yeah.
And then obviously division games against the Chiefs and Chargers. So it's going to be a series of entertaining games, and I think the Broncos should believe that they can win each one of those games. But you got to be locked in to do it, and so we're going to rest up. They're going to rest up, and we'll be ready to go for this stretch run, which it's a special season already, and I think that you don't know how things are going to play out, but it has a potential to get to be really special, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
They asked Malcolm Roach after the game. They were like, "Oh, like, how have you sat back and like really looked at the season and how special is it?" And he gave such an honest answer. He was like, "It's kind of like you can't really do that when you're in it, like maybe during the bye week I can, but like for the most part, like you're just kind of in it right now, and you're just, as you mentioned, this team is a very bye week the next game is the most important because it's the next game. And I think this bye week is coming at a perfect time. I remember looking at the schedule at the beginning of the season and thinking like, wow, this is a pretty late bye week. Like, how are the Broncos going to handle this road trip? How are they going to handle facing an AFC West opponent and X, Y, and Z? And they did it. And that's exactly what, they were looking for, especially coming after that London game when you think like, oh, is that where you're going to have the bye week? And no, they toughed it out. Sean Payton did what he needed to do in his research to figure out the best way to get these guys ready for the following game. And now this bye week, I feel like couldn't come at a better time for this team because, as you mentioned, with Pastor Tam being out, now he has a full week where he can hopefully maybe potentially come back. Other guys, as you mentioned, like Jonah Ellis, or even, a guy like Marvin Mims, who just got activated, had a great game, and I was like, okay, now you can rest and really come back good to go for that Commanders game, who, as we mentioned, they're also going to come off with their bye week. But how much are you just looking forward to the bye week, and how much do you think it's a perfect time for this team to have it?
Yeah, like I said, I think it sets you up for this final stretch, and you get to get ready to go, and I think it's a time to relax. And like McGlinchey said, after the mini bye, you kind of fill your cup emotionally, and I think physically too, and then you get ready to go, and hopefully, play your best football and get ready to go and win some big games. You got a primetime game against the Commanders to, again, show what you're all about in front of the country. Going to play some big games against the Packers, the Jags, Christmas Day game. Like, this is when the season gets real. And you put yourself in position now, but you got to go out there and finish it. And hopefully, man, I think if you're the Broncos and you see what yesterday was like, a playoff type game at home, your focus has to be, how can we get more of those? And I remember thinking in Buffalo last year when Sean Payton said, we have to find a way to play these games at home. I remember thinking, that's absolutely right, but that's going to be hard to do because of the Chiefs. And like, as long as you're in the Chiefs division, a division that they've won 9 years in a row, it's going to be hard to unseat them because the only way you get a home playoff game, barring something crazy, is winning the division. And credit to this team for, I thought there was a chance, even if you were going to win, to do what Sean Payton said and make a run to the Super Bowl, I thought there was a chance that you'd have to still go through Kansas City at some point in the postseason. Yeah. And credit to them for not only starting 8-2, but then yesterday, if you lose that game, you're kind of back in a dogfight in the AFC West. And for them to take advantage of that game and put some distance between themselves, and really now 75% chance that you're going to host a playoff game, at least one, And so for them to do that, it speaks to the toughness. It speaks to them knowing, hey, this is what we need to do to get to where we want to go. And I remember in 2015, and I said this on the preview show, if the Broncos don't have home field over the Patriots, maybe you don't win that AFC Championship game. And so that environment is so important, and the crowd showed up yesterday and was loud. And I think if you're the Broncos, that has to be the focus of, hey, yesterday is what it was all about. How do we get more of that? And that's got to be the focus down the stretch.
That emotion that we felt from the crowd, I mean, when Willits hit that game winner, the stadium just erupted. The cheers, the hands up, the high fives. It was something great to see, Broncos country. So we appreciate you guys for being really loud at the game on Sunday, and we expect that to continue all season long. It's crazy to think that the next home game is not till like December something. It's against the Packers like a month from now. So we'll miss you guys at Empower Field at Mile High. But don't worry, because we will have you covered here on Altitude Advantage. In the meantime, as the Broncos head on the road after their bye week to Washington and then Las Vegas. So we appreciate you guys listening to another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. As always, make sure you subscribe, like, leave your comments below. And as a reminder, there is no episode this week on Thursday. We will be back the following week after the bye week, rested up, getting ready to preview the Commanders. So once again, appreciate you guys for listening. And for all the latest, to catch up on yesterday's game, visit DenverBroncos.com.